Greetings. This is Everyday Enchantment, and I am your host, Stacey. And a little notice before we get started that this is a very tender topic today. I'm going to be talking about how I walk through the grief and just the processing of my mother's death. For those of you who do not know me, she committed suicide about 4 years ago. And it was a very bumpy, rough process. And I want to talk to you about it because I know so many people are going through rough, bumpy, dark, dark nights of the soul kind of experiences. And we don't talk about it enough. We don't actually kind of get more open and honest about what the process looks like and how to navigate through. So that's what I'm here to do in this episode. So I'm going to jump right in and say that, again, that first phone call in the middle of the night when you find out something shocking like this, there is this element, right, of just being in autopilot. Maybe something takes over us, and we get, at least for me, I get very practical about what needs to be done. And yet, kind of paired with the practicality of the things that I was doing in terms of just handling certain details, there was also this very, very messy, kind of raw emotion that didn't know exactly how, I think I didn't know exactly how I was feeling. However, it wanted to kind of bubble up through me, like almost like a spring, and it came at all sorts of interesting times. One being in Old Navy, I was getting some clothes to wear for the services, and all of a sudden I just started sobbing. I don't remember exactly what brought that on, except for the fact that in the past I would have been very, very kind of embarrassed and shamed, apologizing. I was like, nope, not going to do that. I am this very messy human going through a very difficult situation, you know. And this is even without, when a parent passes, there's significant change and grief and process that to me is very different than other people that we lose in our life. I'm sure losing a child, losing a spouse, losing a partner, also very, very much tender, significant, and a little bit different than losing the parent. The parent, even if you don't have a great relationship with, which my mother and I definitely didn't have the best of relationships, even in that place, there's still this bond, there's still this connection that we feel as a human, as a mother, daughter, you name it. And so when you are grieving, when you are going through something that feels like it's turning you upside down, where can we find greater compassion for ourselves? And where can we make the space to fall apart? Right? Sure, we want to fall apart at home. We want to fall apart when nobody's watching and nobody can see. I did that many, many a time. And it is also okay to fall apart wherever you find yourself without apology, without having to shrink, and letting that emotional response just, again, be this spring of emotion that wants to move through. So I gave myself that whole first year. And again, not that it stopped after a year, but really a very wide space and channel to be as messy as I needed to be unapologetic. I was not worried about taking care of other people, about what other people were thinking. If they didn't understand it, that was okay because it was not their journey. My grief journey, very, very, very unique. I have a lot of childhood trauma. I have dealt with my mother's mental illness for the 40 some years we were on the planet together. And as much as I was in shock in the moment, when I look at all of the things that happened over the years, I wasn't actually so surprised. There's this intuitive part. And actually, a couple months before she passed, a message was coming through, and I didn't quite understand it. But it's so interesting, too, right? When you go back after something happens and you can look with a different perspective. Not to beat yourself up, because I know we can get into kind of a guilt spiral there too and say, oh my gosh, I should have known and I could have done. Here's the biggest thing for me in my grief: allowing myself again to be messy, wanting, right, this relationship that I had that did not, right, was not as I wanted, grieving the loss of the opportunity that it would never actually be the way I had it in my mind or the way I desired. So even though we didn't have this great relationship while somebody's alive, you have this belief or hope or possibility that that could change at any moment. When it ends, it's a very, very finite feeling from a human perspective, and yet at the same time, my relationship with my mother started to morph on the other side. So my mediumship was very much alive and well. My mother came through almost immediately to give messages, and I was like, nope. Not ready for this. The human is still very angry and grieving and upset, and I'm not ready. And so later on, months later, she came through other people that I am related, connected to, that are mediums, to give messages to me. She chose people that I trusted, but weren't quite exactly like right up in my inner space. I think she did that on purpose because she knew that I would connect with them and I would respect and trust the messages. And yet I wouldn't put up more like boundaries because, again, these are people that are operating in my world, but not right up in my biz. And so, that was a part of this grieving, is being angry. So much of my childhood was a secret. All of the trauma, the neglect, the abuse, the addiction that was there, the mental illness, the narcissism, you name it. There were some very dark energies at play. And even in the space of like being a soul here in a human experience, right? And so I can say, oh, I came into this family not to be a victim, but to actually experience the darkest things on the planet. What's really happening that people are struggling with, that is unhealed, that again, there's so much shame around. So I could have that sense while I was grieving, but I could never bypass that piece where, again, as the human, I am angry, 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 angry about all the things that were done or were not done in my life that were never spoken about, were never acknowledged, were never actually processed by the adults doing the things to the children. And again, it's funny, years prior, I was going through counseling through my divorce, and I was recounting something that happened in childhood, and the counselor said to me, "Do you know that I can't believe that you are out on the other side as well as you are based on your childhood history." She's like, "You have survived." At the time, I was like, "I don't know what she's talking about. This is just what I did." However, in the last couple of years, I understand that in such a more profound way, that I was absolutely in survival mode. And something about my mother's presence on this planet made me fearful to take up all the space to be myself, because one of the dynamics that we had was this rejection, this "I don't love you, what are you doing for me?" This, her deep pain, her deep unhealed trauma, all the things not only that she held, but she held for the ancestral line, was again morphing it or projecting out through this human experience that I was also having. And so deep, profound forgiveness for everyone involved does not just snap your fingers and you say, "Oh, I magically forgive myself." You just don't walk through that space without first saying, fuck forgiveness, fuck this shit. I am so angry and so upset. And that honesty, the willingness to be with whatever it is you don't really want to say out loud. Nobody wants to say that. And nobody wants to go around saying, yeah, I have this really not nice relationship with my parent. And again, we tried, particularly not me, but the parentals and the family unit tried to put this airbrush version out into the world that we're this beautiful family and loving and fun. Okay, not that that can't be true. However, there was, you walk through that door, right? Whatever the front door with the fancy wreath and it looks really pretty and the flowers on the on the side, and all of a sudden you're in a very different world. You are in a world where again nothing that you went through felt supportive, felt like, didn't feel love. If any of you have read Bell Hooks All About Love, it's like I read that book and it was like, hot damn. Exactly. People cared for me, I guess, the best that they could, but they didn't actually know what love is. And I think that experiences like this, when we go through these big, big, like break you down, break you open, whatever we want to call it, moments of transformation. We don't talk enough, I don't think, about the place where we're in despair and anger and overwhelm, and we don't know if we're going to get through the other side. And again, that could be a 5 minute emotional feel, or that could last for 3 weeks. And you're wondering if you are going to get out through, not out, but through these spaces. And interestingly enough, something that really helped ground me through this process is the day after my mother died, I got a message in meditation. I was laying in bed and my guides came to me and they said, "You are going to live a very, very long time, more than probably double than what you have lived." I was 45 at the time. So they're like, "You're going to be 90 plus on this planet without your mother here in human form. And that is going to set you free in a very, very poignant way. However, you cannot skip this part where you process everything that you pretty much put in this little Jenga tower and carried it around with you in a certain way in your mind, in your body, in your soul. We are going to start pulling pieces and it's going to come tumbling down and it's not going to feel at all like freedom or peace and what have you. And yet, it is absolutely the gatekeeper to helping you go through this space. Now, again, not everybody's going to have the things that I've had in my life. I've had so many really dark, messy, oh my gosh, things that have happened to me. That's part of my place here on the planet is if I am willing and able to go through some of these experiences, especially when I was younger. I feel like as I have gotten older, my role is to process all of that, to speak whatever it is out there, to tell my story, not again so that it gets sensationalized and drama, so that you know and you have permission to be as messy and compassionate and truthful as whatever it is that is in your life. And even if it's already happened, you can go back with a lens and see things and heal things and be in relationship with whatever has happened, the scars of our lives, be in relationship with those things differently, even if it happened 10 or 20 years ago, even if it hasn't happened yet, and you're going to walk through it at some point. And again, I think a lot of us have walked through some very kind of hell and back kind of things, again, as change agents on the planet, as people who are saying, okay, we're not going to do the same. I'm not going to pretend my mother was this just perfect mother. I am not going to keep the secrets of the family about addiction. Again, my family did not even want to say the word suicide. And it was very controversial for me a year after she died to start speaking about it in public. And I said, I will not be silenced anymore. So again, am I willing to be misunderstood, judged, criticized, ostracized, you name it, in order to speak what feels like my truth. And it doesn't mean that it's the truth. It means that it is my truth of experience. And that is where all of us, no matter what experiences we're going through, you being able to feel whatever your truth is. Cry, scream, yell, curse, call up your best friend and just go for those long walks. Do whatever it is. And I'm going to tell you something else in my experience because I found this trauma coach right while I was in the right in the early stages of grieving. And funny enough, even though she had all the letters after her name and all the things, she was not a great trauma coach. She left me kind of pulling again those pieces apart, but not actually helping me ground my own energy so that I could heal, process, work through them in a way. She actually elevated my nervous system in a way that was not helpful or supportive or whatever you fill in the word. So, what I learned from that is even when you think there's some person that's an expert, right? An expert in grieving, an expert in trauma, whatever it is, if it doesn't feel supportive, feel like a yes, feel like, oh my gosh, this person absolutely gets me. And I believe she or he or they can help me in a way. And again, your body is going to be the best detector of that truth. So if you're feeling anxious, really take a pause and pay attention because I used to feel anxious because I felt anxious all the time. I didn't actually give it a lot of attention. And when I started paying attention to, am I anxious because this is an uncomfortable feeling to feel versus I am anxious because the energy of this person really doesn't feel like a good fit. When you start to nuance yourself and discern, and again, this is not complicated. This is about pausing and asking and getting curious. What does this anxious feeling want to tell me? What does this grief want me to know? Somebody said, a friend of mine said something about grief, like it's like sadness that doesn't have a place to go, or love that doesn't, I can't remember exactly, but it is. There's grief is this, again, there's a ball of messy threads. There's all of it in there. And most of us, again, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to go back to work because I want to be distracted. If you go and be distracted by whatever is for you, trust me, it doesn't go away. So to me, I was like, open the doors, come on in. And I can remember saying multiple times to people, I cannot take care of you in this moment because, again, my role was very much caregiver. I am taking care of me, and this is the best way in this moment for me to do that. Whether that means, no, I cannot. I kind of pulled very much inward at the time, and I cut a lot of my social calendar and stuff because it just was like a no, I don't feel like doing those kinds of things right now. It's too much. And one of the things that people talk about as well too is this like, how are you? Right? That question. It's like, oh, how do you think I am? I hated that question at the time. And this idea of making people, right, feel better, right? Like you want to make the person who's like I was like, I don't care about making anybody feel better in this moment. What really matters is me. And so again, there's this awkwardness because people don't know what to say, which amen, who knows what to say in these situations? We just try to meet it with love and grace and truth the best we can. Hey, I don't know what to say. You're my friend. I love you. I know you're hurting. And how can I support you in this moment? Sometimes that's helpful. And then sometimes it's like, it's too much for me to have to tell you how to support me. And that can be really true too. And so in those moments, to me, it's like, as the friend, sometimes when people are going through this, or as the coach, it's like, I'm going to just hold space. Like, you can be angry and frustrated, and I'm not going to try to fix you. I'm not going to try to tell you everything happens for a reason, or this is going to be better, or she's in a better, like, I'm not going to say any of that stuff because, again, a lot of that is about trying to skip over the discomfort of whatever the raw emotion is. So allowing your friends, your loved ones, yourself to be in that and be in safe places. And again, I think that's the pulling back a little bit. It's like, where does it feel safe? Obviously, I felt safe enough at Old Navy. And I went to the beach. My husband, he was amazing. He took me to the beach like 2 months after my mom passed, and that's my place where, again, I connect with the ocean, with the water, with the healing, and that was a beautiful gift of just, again, allowing myself to be. There was no agenda, just being out there, taking long walks on the beach, whatever that is for you, wherever you need to go in order to find that solace. I promise you, it doesn't look like anybody else's. And the more you give yourself permission to do it in ways that don't probably make sense to anybody else. Like, you might not even make sense to yourself. There's still moments now, 4 years later, where there's something very tender. My mother will put a song on the radio for me and try to get my attention about something, and I can break into tears. And we have done a lot of reparative work on the other side of her death. We have a much better relationship now, but there was a lot of work involved. So maybe that's another episode. All right. Here is, like, we're going to come down to the one thing, right? Which is me always wanting to come down. When you're grieving, it is going to be very unscripted. It is going to be like you're flailing around. When you don't allow yourself to flail without a timeline or an agenda, maybe it's a day if it's something small, maybe it's a month. If you say, oh, I'll allow myself to be sad for a week, and that's it. And if you have things like me, where again, 40 plus years of trauma that needed to be seen and come out, it probably is going to take more than just 6 months or a year. And that's okay. It might take the rest of my life, and things will come through as they're meant to come through. However, transformation, alchemy, right? Grief is a huge invitation and portal. We don't need to invite it in and be like, oh, I need to be grieving all the time. However, when it shows up at our door, when it comes and knocks, being brave enough, and we all are, you are, to go through it. Surround yourself with love and support. You do not have to do it alone. And make sure that, again, my one thing is being true to yourself above all else. Okay, that's it today. That's a lot. It's a longer podcast than usual because I couldn't just put all of that probably in 10 minutes. So if you have questions, you want to talk to me about this, please send me a message, pop over to my Everyday Enchantment Facebook group. You know, it's funny, I talk about all these dark things, and I also have this, again, this grounded commitment to enchantment. Enchantment holds all of the like darkest human pieces as well too. We cannot be in true enchantment with the world and our lives and joy and love and you name it if we are not willing to be in all of this. All right, my friends, until next time, have a absolutely beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in. Get all the delicious details and links we've mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. If you'd like to chat about this episode or learn more about how to work with me, come visit me in my private Facebook group, Everyday Enchantment, or check out my website, staceyandon.com, where you can find out more about my Leap of Faith coaching, my Map Makers group program, and the School of Intuitive Magic. Plus a special shout out for all the production and editing of this show by Richard Wilmore. That's it for now, love. Here's to living a life enchanted. See you soon.